You ever notice how some people just don't break? Markets crash. Jobs disappear. Bills stack up like someone's daring them to flinch. And they don't. They sit there, quiet, almost unnervingly still, while everyone around them is losing their minds. I used to think those people were either lying or just didn't care enough. Turns out, I was wrong about both. There's a specific way of thinking, and I mean a very specific one, that separates the people who collapse under financial pressure from the ones who move through it like it's just another Tuesday. And it doesn't come from meditation apps. It doesn't come from reading stoic quotes on Instagram. It doesn't even come from having more money. It comes from something much colder. Much more deliberate. We're calling it the Hitman mindset. And before you go anywhere, stay with me. Because what this actually means for your finances, for your decisions, for the way you handle the next crisis that's already on its way, it might be the most useful thing you hear this year. Let's start with what's really happening when financial pressure hits. Not the bank account part. The brain part. Because here's something most people never talk about. When money gets tight, your brain doesn't just feel stressed. It literally starts operating differently. Studies out of Princeton showed that financial scarcity consumes cognitive bandwidth, the same mental space you use to make good decisions, think clearly, plan ahead. When you're worried about money, you lose somewhere between 13 and 14 IQ points worth of cognitive function. Think about that for a second. The moment you need your clearest thinking the most, when the rent is due, when the market drops, when you lose a client, your brain is running on less than half its usual capacity. You're not just scared. You're impaired. And what does an impaired brain do? It panics. It reacts. It makes decisions based on what hurts right now, not what matters long term. It sells when it should hold. It spends when it should save. It freezes when it should move. This is why financial pressure feels like quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. Most people try to solve this with willpower. Or discipline. Or some motivational speech they half remember. And it works for about 3 days. Then the pressure comes back and they're right back at zero. Because willpower isn't the answer. The architecture of how you think is the answer. And that's exactly what the Hitman mindset is about. Not emotion management. Not positive thinking. A complete restructuring of how you process high-stakes situations, so that pressure stops being something that breaks you and starts being something you actually work better under. Now, when I say Hitman, I'm not talking about the movies. I'm not talking about violence or anything dark like that. I'm talking about a specific psychological profile. A way of existing under pressure that most people never develop because, honestly, life never forced them to build it. Think about what that archetype actually represents at its core. Someone who operates in high-stakes environments where one mistake costs everything. Someone who cannot afford to let emotion override judgment. Someone who shows up, does the work, and walks away clean, regardless of what's happening around them. That's not coldness. That's not the absence of feeling. That's discipline at a level most people only read about. Here's what's interesting. The military has studied this for decades. So have emergency surgeons. So have professional traders. And what they all found, independently, is the same thing. The highest performers under pressure aren't the ones who feel less. They're the ones who've built a relationship with pressure that's fundamentally different from everyone else. They don't try to make the pressure go away. They don't pretend it isn't there. They acknowledge it, file it, and move. There's a term for this in psychology. It's called stress inoculation. Deliberately exposing yourself to controlled pressure until your nervous system stops treating it as a threat and starts treating it as a familiar condition. Like a muscle. The more you train it, the less it costs you to use it. But here's the part nobody tells you. You don't need a military program to build this. You don't need years of therapy or some extreme life event to rewire how you respond to financial fear. What you need is a framework. A set of mental moves, practiced, deliberate, repeatable, that you run every single time the pressure shows up. And it starts with something so simple it's almost offensive. The first thing a professional does when pressure hits, before anything else, is this. They stop. And they ask one question. Not how do I fix this? Not why is this happening to me? Not what if it gets worse? The question is, what is actually true right now? Sounds simple. It isn't. Because when financial pressure hits, your brain doesn't give you reality. It gives you a story about reality. And that story is almost always catastrophic. It takes one missed paycheck and turns it into homelessness. It takes one bad investment and turns it into complete financial ruin. It takes one difficult month and turns it into proof that you were never going to make it anyway. That story feels true. It feels urgent. It feels like the only reasonable interpretation of what's happening. It's almost never accurate. There's a concept in trading called signal versus noise. The signal is the actual meaningful data, the thing that tells you something real about where things are headed. The noise is everything else. The panic. The headlines. The gut feelings. The worst-case scenarios your mind generates at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. Amateur traders react to noise. They see a dip and they sell. They see a headline and they restructure everything. They let the noise feel like signal and they make decisions accordingly. Professional traders have one job: ignore the noise long enough to find the signal. Your financial life works exactly the same way. When pressure hits, the noise is deafening. Your emotions, your fears, other people's opinions, the market hysteria, the comparison to everyone around you who seems to be doing fine, all of it is noise. All of it is pulling you toward a reaction that will cost you. The signal is quieter. What do I actually owe? What do I actually have? What is one real decision I can make today that moves me forward? That's it. That's the whole move. Not a solution. Not a plan. Just, what is actually true right now? Because you cannot navigate from a false map. And panic always gives you a false map. The hitman doesn't run from the building when something goes wrong. He pauses. He reads the room. He finds what's real. And then, only then, he moves. Here's something that will change the way you handle every financial crisis you ever face. Stop trying to solve the whole thing. I know that sounds counterintuitive. When everything feels like it's falling apart, the instinct is to fix all of it, immediately, completely, permanently. You want a plan that covers the next 6 months, addresses every possible scenario, and guarantees you never feel this way again. And that instinct will destroy you. Because here's what actually happens when you try to solve everything at once. You get overwhelmed. You freeze. You spend 3 hours researching options and make 0 decisions. You go to bed feeling like you did something because you thought about it really hard, and wake up the next morning with the exact same problems, minus 1 night of sleep. This is one of the most common and most invisible ways that financial pressure defeats people. Not through the actual problem. Through the paralysis that comes from trying to solve too much at once. The professional move, the hitman move, is to shrink the timeline down to almost nothing. Not the next 6 months. Not even the next week. What's the next right move? Singular. There's a reason elite military units don't brief their teams on the entire mission at once. They break it into phases. Objective 1. Then Objective 2. The soldiers on the ground aren't thinking about the extraction plan while they're still breaching the door. They're thinking about the door. Your finances work the same way. When the pressure is high, the question isn't, how do I become financially stable? That question is too big. It has too many variables. It invites too much anxiety. The question is, what is the one thing I can do in the next 24 hours that makes this situation even slightly better? Maybe that's a phone call you've been avoiding. Maybe that's moving $200 somewhere safer. Maybe that's canceling one subscription you forgot you had. Maybe it's just writing down the actual numbers so you stop fearing the imaginary ones. Small. Concrete. Doable today. And here's the thing nobody talks about. That small move doesn't just solve a small problem. It does something far more valuable. It breaks the paralysis. It proves to your nervous system that you are capable of action. That you are not helpless. That the situation, however difficult, is responding to you. Momentum is the antidote to panic. Not a perfect plan. Not a complete solution. Just one move. Then another. Then another. The hitman doesn't think about every job he'll ever take. He thinks about this room. This moment. This decision. That's the only timeline that's ever real anyway. This is the one that takes the longest to understand. But once it lands, it changes everything. Most people treat financial pressure like an enemy. Something to escape, to survive, to get through as fast as possible so life can go back to normal. And I understand that. Pressure is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's terrifying. Nobody chooses it. But here's what I've come to believe after watching how people handle money across every income level, every background, every type of financial crisis you can imagine. Pressure is information. Not punishment. Not bad luck. Not proof that you're behind or broken or doing it wrong. Information. And the people who learn to read it, really read it, without flinching, those are the ones who come out of hard periods fundamentally different from how they went in. Not just recovered. Upgraded. Think about what financial pressure actually reveals. It shows you exactly where your system is weak. Where you've been operating on assumption instead of intention. Where you've been spending on identity instead of value. Where you built a life that required everything to go right, and never prepared for the months when it wouldn't. That's not comfortable information. But it's real. And real is useful. There's a concept in engineering called stress testing. You take a structure, a bridge, a building, a material, and you apply pressure far beyond what it will normally face. Not to destroy it. To find where it bends. Because a bend you find in a controlled test is infinitely less dangerous than a break you discover in the real world. Your financial pressure right now? That's your stress test. And the question isn't, how do I make this stop? The question is, what is this showing me that I wouldn't have seen otherwise? Maybe it's showing you that your income depends entirely on one source, and that's a vulnerability you can fix. Maybe it's showing you that your relationship with spending is emotional, not logical, and that pattern has a name and a solution. Maybe it's showing you that you've been avoiding numbers because numbers make things real, and you prefer the comfortable fog of not knowing. Whatever it's showing you, that's the signal. That's the thing worth paying attention to. Because the hitman doesn't resent a difficult assignment. He studies it. He learns the layout. He finds the angles other people missed. He uses the difficulty as data. And when it's over, he's not just done with that job. He's better at the next one. That's the whole game. Not surviving pressure. Using it. Before we get to the final piece of this, I want to pause for just a second. If you've made it this far into the video with me, that already tells me something about you. You're not here for shortcuts. You're not looking for some trick that makes the hard stuff disappear. You're here because you actually want to understand how this works at a deeper level. And I respect that more than you know. So if this has been useful, if something in the last few minutes shifted something for you, hit that subscribe button. Because we put out content like this every single day. Real conversations about money, pressure, decision-making, and the mindset behind it all. No hype. No gimmicks. Just the stuff that actually matters. And honestly, the people who find this channel tend to be exactly the kind of people who belong here. Alright, let's finish this. Because everything we've talked about, reading reality clearly, shrinking the timeline, using pressure as information, it all points to something deeper. Something that doesn't get said enough in conversations about money. Calm is not the absence of pressure. Calm is what happens when you stop fighting the pressure and start working with it. That distinction sounds small. It isn't. Most people spend their entire financial lives trying to create circumstances where they never feel afraid. Where the account is always full enough, the job is always secure enough, the future is always certain enough that they can finally relax. That moment never comes. Not because they're failing. Because that's not how any of this works. The hitman doesn't wait for a safe moment to operate. There are no safe moments in his world. So he built something better than safety. He built reliability. Inside himself. And that's what this whole mindset is really pointing toward. Not a technique. not a strategy. A different relationship with uncertainty itself, where your ability to function clearly doesn't depend on the conditions being favorable. Because conditions are never permanently favorable. For anyone. Here's what I want to leave you with. The Hitman mindset isn't about being emotionless. It isn't about pretending money doesn't matter or that pressure doesn't hurt. It's not a mask you wear to look composed while you're falling apart inside. It's about building something real. Something internal. A version of yourself that doesn't require perfect conditions to function. And that gets built the same way everything real gets built. Slowly. Quietly. Under pressure. Every time you pause before panicking, you're building it. Every time you ask what's actually true instead of believing the worst-case story your mind generated at midnight, you're building it. Every time you make one small move instead of freezing in front of the whole mountain, you're building it. Every time you look at a hard season and ask what it's showing you instead of just asking when it ends, you're building it. You don't become someone who handles pressure well by avoiding pressure. You become it by going through. And the quiet thing, the thing I hope stays with you after this video ends and you go back to your life and your numbers and your decisions, is that you've probably already survived things you thought would break you. You just didn't give yourself credit for how you did it. Maybe it's time to start. Hit that subscribe button and share this with 5 people who need to hear it right now. Not later. Right now. Because the right video at the right moment changes things, and you already know who in your life is going through it. And drop a comment below. Tell me honestly, which of these 3 mental moves hit closest to home for you? And if you've got a topic you want me to dig into next, leave it down there. I read them. I build from them. This channel exists because of those conversations. See you in the next one.